Okay, Tube, this is going to be a video. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. There's a few things I want to cover. I'm not saying it's going to be very good, ill prepared as usual, but let's get this freak show on the road. First off, I want to talk about Israel and Israeli elections or their recent elections. Um, and at first, I was going to come on here and talk about Israel's elections. And let me first say that I am not in any way trying to sound overly critical of Israel or Jews, and I'm not trying to sound anti-Semitic in any way. Um, I don't like either one of the Abrahamic religions, and I have said before that I think the world, especially Western society, would be better off if the Christian church collapsed. I'm very critical of Islam. I'm not a big fan of them, and I don't much like Judaism either as a religion. But then, but I don't specifically dislike them anymore. 1 minute. This pop-ups are calling. All right. But I don't specifically dislike them any more than I do either one of the other three Abrahamic religions. In fact, I might even like them, or I might even like them a little bit more, or dislike them less. But I don't like either one. And there are some religions I don't really have a problem with. Buddhism, for example, is one of them. But I do not like Abrahamism or the Abrahamic faiths. I don't like them. Other than I will say there is a the Sabbatines or whatever they're called. There's a guy called for fuck's sake. But there was a guy called Sabbatai Zevi or something like that. Sabbatai Zedi or whatever his name was, and he's kind of an interesting guy, and I'm not really sure a lot about them, but they're kind of interesting. I might not have a lot. I might kind of be more favorable towards them, but the point is, I don't like any Abrahamic religion, or most any religion, even if they're not Abrahamic. But back to the point. I'm an atheist, humanist, liberal, not a big fan of religion. But back to the point. As far as Israel goes, like I have said, I don't know much about Israel. I'm not very familiar with that region. I don't really want to know a lot about them or Palestine. I have enough trouble with my country or toxic wasteland of a country I'm living in, America. Not a big fan of them either. And I'm smack dab in the middle of it. So, So I don't know much about Israel, but I will say this. Their elections are very strange. And at first I was going to come here on here and ask what the hell is wrong with their election cycle, because there seems to be, for some reason, Netanyahu, in my opinion, seems to have lost the election. He didn't get the votes he needed. And in my country, if a president loses an election, he steps down, the other guy takes over. But for some reason, because he got equal the amount of seats of his political party, he remains in office and the other guy does too. So it's very strange, but at the same time, I almost prefer that, because I've said before, I kind of prefer a republic over a democracy, because I don't think society should be based on mob rule or just getting enough votes, because that opens up a can of worms that it can be very bad, depending upon what enough people believe. So the point is, as far as this issue goes, that there is one person that kind of strays the vote, and he's more pro-war than even Netanyahu or his party. And his name is Lieberman. I forget his first name. Not the American senator. This is another guy in that country. Anyways, he wants war with Hamas. So they're actually more likely to have war with Hamas now, even though the Israeli people seem to have voted against that, because they supported pretty much the more liberal political party. And now it looks like they're more likely to have a war with Hamas than they were when Netanyahu was running things, even though he still is, and it's all very confusing. So that's bizarre, and I don't understand that. But anyways, that's what's going on in Israel. And again, I don't know much about any of that. I know, I think it was Netanyahu himself who wanted a ceasefire. One of his advisors wanted a war with Hamas. He actually wanted a ceasefire, and Hamas supposedly has continued to attack them. And as I have said before, I'm not completely anti-Israel. I'm not completely anti-Palestine. I don't know what the hell goes on in that region. I can't tell you that. I don't fucking know. But anyways, on to other issues. Something a little bit more close to home here. Let's see. Something I might know more about. Oh yeah, genetically modified mosquitoes may cause a massive die out in South America. And this is a good lesson, by the way, as to why you don't fuck with Mother Nature. Because scientists infected vast numbers of male mosquitoes with a contagion or a form of GMO that was hoped to be passed on to female mosquitoes during the process of mating. And this was supposed to cause a mass die of mosquitoes. Well, instead, what happened was, and I'm not sure what happened, but they became immune to the GMOs, and it was working at first, but now they've become immune to the GMOs, and there was a massive resurgence of genetically modified mosquitoes. They're genetically modified and more aggressive now because of behavioral differences. And it could cause a mass die out of people in South America. I forget the number of people they said might die out, but that's quite ironic and also a good reason not to screw with nature. So let's leave it there. Let's see what else happens. Okay, a new pandemic. 1 minute. A new pandemic could wipe out 80 million people, and I think destroy all but 5% of the world's economy. Fucking shit. Yeah, just keep popping up, you annoying assholes. All right, 1 minute. All right. Anyways, it could destroy all but 5% of the planet's economy, along with killing 80 million people. And one of the things that, first of all, we'll get into how this is probably to do with us screwing with nature. And the Republicans still don't seem to understand that because this was on a largely conservative site that I get my news from, simply because they have a very well-rounded kind of way of presenting the news that's easier to kind of understand and, you know, get access to. But what is interesting is that they said something about it could be due to misinformation on the internet. And I have said before, first of all, let me say, I'm sure there are fine. You know, they also said, by the way, these people that want to talk about misinformation once said that male genital mutilation or circumcision reduced AIDS. And of course, we know that to be a complete load of shit because the first world countries to have AIDS, to find AIDS in the population was America. And we still have a higher population of people that have that, or demographic of people that have that, than they do in Europe, even though we continually do this to children and they don't. And I'm sure they're trying, even though, as far as I know, this has nothing to do with sex or specifically about sex, I'm sure they'll find some way to try to use this as a scam to make money lopping off or chopping off part of your kid's dick. So I'm sure they're still trying to do that. But back to the issue, I guess they're talking mostly, in all seriousness, I guess they're talking mostly about vaccinations. And as I have said before, I do not oppose vaccination. I'm not some kind of crazy conservative or anti-vaxxer. Even I don't agree with that. But on the other hand, I have also said, like Trump said, they over-vaccinate children ridiculously so. So much to the point where, like, they'll give a child within a very small period of time, like 50 vaccines. Like he said, they would give you enough vaccination. Fucking shit. They will give you enough vaccinations to drop a full-grown horse. And it's fucking ridiculous. They could kill a full-grown horse with this shit, and they're pumping that mercury into children. And you can see that may be causing mental issues. By the way, genital mutilation and neurological problems close to birth, especially when done close to birth, can cause various mental issues and things like that also. And I have talked about that before, but regardless of that, vaccinations, when you're pumping that much mercury into a child, could cause them to be really screwed up later in life, or even not that much later in life, maybe very soon after that. So that's something to take into consideration. But with that being said, I would just like to talk about, or say that, not really talk much about because I'm spending a lot of time on this, but it is interesting to me. I'm doing the best I can, people. But it is interesting to me the massive amount of destruction we've done to this world, the way we screw with nature. And as I just talked about the mosquitoes, now we have a massive believe fucking China, Chi-Town, Saudi Arabia, or someone's fucking with me now. Anyways, it is interesting to me the way that we fuck with the environment, we interfere with nature. And George Carlin talked about the way we interfere with nature, strip mauling forests, deforestation, strip mauling forests, the pollution of the atmosphere, the dumping of toxic waste into the oceans. We bring much of this on ourselves, and I mean that is exactly what you are seeing here. And in some small way, we almost get what we deserve. But just like I talked about this now, I was about to say this like I talked about this now with the mosquitoes. I'm sure we're doing much of this to ourselves, and Republicans still don't understand this. And you have conspiracy theories talking about the government are doing this on purpose. And I'm about to talk about how one idiot in the government, Republican, actually just recently, or not recently, but he said on record, and this is going to be very important going forward in foreign policy, because he said on record pretty much that we could stand to lose 20 million people or something like that in a nuclear war. And he said that. So that's something we're going to have to look into. But they believe that the government is intentionally destroying the environment and shit on purpose. And I don't believe that. I believe it has to do with negative human behavior, overpopulation, pollution, environmental destruction, and the fact that we do much of this to ourselves. But I'll get into that in a minute. Or I'm not going to get more into that. I'm not done talking about that. But okay, back to the fucking point. Trudeau, Justin Trudeau has had not only that one photo that was bad enough, but perhaps a bit more explainable because it was from an Arabian Nights themed party or Aladdin themed party, even though there's still no reason for him to wear, or no excuse for him to wear a brown face. Simply because you could have done that without doing that, and that was insulting and stupid. But now there's another even worse photo taken of him possibly wearing blackface. So this is going to be an outrage and ridiculous. And he probably deserves to be impeached. I don't know. I'm not sure how long ago this was. I'm not sure how old he is. People make mistakes and they do and say stupid things. I'm living proof of that. But the point is, I actually don't have any issue with Trudeau. Of all the social justice type guys, I kind of like him more. Of course, he's not American. I believe he's Canadian, or I think he's the Canadian Prime Minister, as I'm not mistaken. But the point is, I liked his concept to have 50 different genders or some shit like that, because even though I can understand it's confusing, and there probably is a fuck of a lot more simpler way of expressing your gender identity than having 50 different fucking genders to choose from that people have to remember, and that's just bizarre, and it could be complicated. But regardless, and it does take a massive rewiring of society and the way people think, and I'm not sure how it would work. But the point is, I still like that compared to the older tradition of gender norms, where you're either a boy or a girl and you have to be one or the other. I think it's much better to have gray area. Maybe not that much gray area, but I still like what he was doing. So I want to make that clear. But regardless, he's kind of really stepped in some dog shit this time. So, there's that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And, I gave Trump some rope, as I often do. I gave Trump some rope, as I often do, and he's hung all of us with it again. Because I gave him credit for kicking out John Bolton. I guess it was the National Security Advisor. And I still support that decision. But I have to take homage or exception to the fact that some people said that it couldn't get, I even heard somebody literally say it couldn't get any worse than John Bolton. Of course, that's not true. Annoying telephones ringing in the background. Of course, that's not true. And now the pop-ups. Pop up. Pop up. Sorry about that. Anyway, somebody literally said it couldn't get any worse than John Bolton. Well, it has. the guy they replaced him with, and I don't remember his name, and I didn't write it down, I don't think. But anyways, he said that America could withstand a nuclear attack and the death of 20 million citizens. And he literally said this, or something to the effect of that. And it actually goes hand in hand with a scene from a movie called Doctor Strangelove, where in the film, one of the people say that is about a nuclear attack. And it's kind of, I guess, a dark comedy. And in the film, one of the idiots running things, one of the people says, you know, we could withstand losing 20 million people, but we might get our hair messed up or something like that. And of course, the only positive thing that he said, and the only positive thing that could come out of this, is he said that we could rebuild society and we could probably do it in 15 years' time. The only damn problem with that is it would be the same genocidal, incompetent, backwards, crypt keeper imbeciles that don't know what the hell they're doing. They would be the ones rebuilding society, and we would be right back in the same fucking shape in the same place we're in anyways. But if we could get a new elite and somebody new would come out on top and restart society, things would be a hell of a lot better off. But that is not what's gonna happen, because they're gonna go down in their bunkers and ride out the apocalypse while the rest of us die. And it doesn't matter to them because they know that, because they're creeps and scumbags. But that's that. And that's pretty much all I have to talk about. Anyways, P666.